Dr. Tamar Chansky, and today we're talking about how to help your child with bedtime fears. Everyone needs to sleep. So important, kids and parents alike. And yet every child will go through the challenge of learning to, go to sleep on their own and manage their nighttime fears. And parents can be really, really helpful with that process. Part of helping your child really is understanding that what's going on for them is not, they'll say there are monsters under my bed, or they don't like the things in their room, or they're afraid of the dark. And to understand that while you could try to reassure away all of those things, there's no monsters under the bed, there's nothing different in the dark, that the clincher for kids is getting it on some level that it's not their bed or their room or themselves or their house. It's really what their imagination or their worry is telling them about those situations. So what works for kids is separating the worry from your child, and rather than doing that reassurance move that, if it worked, you probably would not be listening to this video today. So maybe some kids can do fine with just a little reassurance, but for the kids who can't, these are the things that will be helpful, is to distinguish between your child and the worry and teach them how to do that for themselves. And the way that you do that is, when your child's upset, empathize first, always, to lean in and let them know that this is hard, that they're having a hard time, and that you want to help them. But then ask, what's your worry telling you about it? Even with a little child, you can use your hands to demonstrate, there's something in your room. Oh, is that what your worry's telling you? Is it saying something like that? Never put out an idea. I never, with the thousands of kids that I have seen over the years, I never suggest a worry and kind of do a yes/no about it. I use an open-ended question and ask kids, what's your worry telling you? What is it saying? Let's find out, because we don't want to put in any ideas that aren't there. And every child's fears, while there's a lot of overlap, everybody's different. So asking the open-ended question, and they can tell you then what their worry is telling them, and then you can begin the very helpful task of fact-checking with them. Again, even with a 3-year-old, to say, does that, worry is making up stories again. Do you hear that? Worry is saying this and that. We have to teach worry how it works, how nighttime works. It's supposed to be dark. This is what it looks like. And so you're empowering your child to feel a sense of control. I'm not a huge fan of the idea of monster sprays and things like that, because I think it's a missed opportunity really for your child to learn early on how the imagination works, and that they can, in the case of needing to feel safe, that they can use their logic to let them know that even though they're having thoughts about monsters or whatever, that they're going to kind of shake their bossy finger and teach worry, that's not true. It's not how it works. So some specific ideas. Fact-checking, as I said, is really helpful to begin to show kids, that they can decide what they think is really the truth about a situation. Fact-checking is, you take the worry and you give it a true-false test. Rather than trusting it, you're going to test it and ask your child, does that sound true to you? What do you think is more true? And come up with a different version of what nighttime is. It can be helpful with young children, older children, to write down what their fact check looks like, so that if they have the same fear night after night, rather than going through that process, if they're able to read, they can just read what the real story is about nighttime. Another idea though, even though we're talking about monsters not being real, once we know when we see a scary movie that it's not real, but that doesn't mean that we don't feel, frightened. So an exercise that can help to calm down and shift that fearful energy into something creative is to do what I call a monster makeover. So if your child is worried about something under the bed or in the closet, have them draw it or even just describe it to you if you don't have materials available. And do a makeover, make it silly, have the monster riding a unicycle, eating a banana, tripping on a bologna sandwich, wearing a funny hat, a bathing suit, whatever, an umbrella, whatever it is, to have your child turn the scary thing into something silly. I've had so much fun with kids over the years doing their silly makeovers. Sometimes kids will have a lot of, you don't need to be a great artist to do this, and kids generally are very good about drawing what their fears look like. If there's some character from a movie, you could print out a copy of that and have your child sort of artistically graffiti that to turn it into something that's less scary for them. So that's the monster makeover. Practice the things that are hard for your child. If being in the dark is scary, which it is for all children, they have to work through that transition and that skill. Have them practice, but away from the idea of being alone. So if you can, in the early evening or, on a rainy day, create an opportunity to practice getting used to the dark, but with the comfort of you there. You can do a pretend, camping trip. You put a blanket over you, you're in the dark, you have a flashlight, something like that. They're doing a fun activity with you, reading or singing. And so they begin to desensitize to the dark part of things before they have to do that and be apart from you. So in general, that's a good strategy whenever you can, is to separate variables and take one at a time. But speaking of the dark, a lot of times parents, when kids are afraid of the dark, what they'll do is to keep the overhead light on, and what happens is that kids have trouble falling asleep. They don't sleep as deeply. The way we're wired, we need to have darkness to not get that signal that we should be up and awake and doing things. And so getting used to the dark is an important part of our overall well-being and health. And so if your child does want to have some light, you can ease into darkness by having lower wattage bulbs. Always, if you do have night lights, have them below eye level. Don't have an overhead light on, but you can gradually help your child to desensitize by lowering the wattage in the bulbs, having a hallway light on instead of a light in their room. So the less light, the better, but if your starting point is that they've been having the overhead light on, you're going to need to do this gradually. If your child is, worrying a lot, we talked about the fact-checking. If your child every day has kind of a new list of fears, one thing that can be helpful is to designate a worry time away from bedtime. So when they're not tired and feeling more, vulnerable at bedtime, but they have kind of some of that good logical energy still available to them, you can do a worry time, set a time, 5 o'clock in the evening or 6 o'clock or 7, and they're going to list their fears to you and do the fact-checking then. You can write down the answers of what they think are really true, and then at bedtime, when they're more tired and can't do this work as well, you already have it done and they can just read that. Another strategy that is popular for kids, and whenever I teach it to kids, their parents say, "Oh, I want to use that too." And it's part of my repertoire, is what I call the 4 doors. That rather than at nighttime, trying to have your child stop thinking about their worry thoughts. We've talked about fact checking them, but it's really helpful to give the mind somewhere else to go. So rather than going through the worry door, you have your child, again, draw or just think of 4 doors. And on each door is a category, a topic of something that they enjoy. Birthday parties, celebrities that they would like to have a dream day with, cupcakes that they want to decorate, funny things about their pet. And they can change the topics frequently, but as you ease your way out of their, tucking them in, that you can say, why don't you choose 2 doors that you want to go through tonight of what you want, how you want to use your imagination, and you can tell me about it at breakfast. So that way they have somewhere else for their mind to go than to the worry or trying to stop it, and you maintain a connection there that you're going to hear about it the next day. So those are some ideas for helping your child to be less fearful at night. And I would say for this project, as much as your child may feel like you're being a mean parent, not just staying there and, staying till they fall asleep, that this is a project that will help them for the rest of their lives. And, whether it's so that they can do the sleepover now, or go to camp, or go on a school trip overnight, go to college, whatever it may be, take your time, but know that this is a project to really persist with, because you're helping your child to gain something, which is the independence and confidence that they can cope away from you. And that is a very fundamental life skill that, though they may not thank you for that today, will be so important in their well-being now and in their launching down the road. So as always, thanks for listening, and more ideas on my website, tamarchansky.com, and here's to more sleep and less worry all around.